All right, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope that everybody has been doing well for the past few days. Another week, we're going to be talking about the Gulf crisis, which is sometimes called Qatar crisis. So the Gulf crisis, some people call it Qatar crisis because of the component we have in this crisis. We will, as usual, spend the next half an hour talking about the crisis. I'm going to be talking about it this week. I'm going to explain things in terms of description and analysis. Once I finish, we're going to have the question time. You can take notes if you want. Some of the information could be available already anyway, but we have some update for the past few days. We're going to be talking about this in the last slide. What is the new information on the Qatari crisis? So this crisis has been going on for the past 3.5 years. 3.5 years. When we call Gulf crisis, because we have 4 states in the GCC have been involved in this crisis. So the Gulf crisis, 4 states involved. Qatar is besieged by Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt. So mostly those states, Gulf states. So when we go back to understand the situation, at least give us a few minutes here to see what is the situation right now. And I assume that everybody of you almost have some good information about the crisis of Qatar or the Gulf crisis, but we're gonna have discussion about this in a positive analytical way. The siege was imposed on the state, on Qatar, still going on, still the siege. And the siege have affected the social fabric, the political structure, somehow the economy. We will look at these as well. Not much efforts have been done to end the siege or to have an end to this crisis, even though we have seen some mediation, and this mediation led by Kuwait and Oman, but mostly Kuwait. Why Kuwait and Oman not being involved? Kuwait and Oman have been always somehow having their own way of diplomacy and have been left as channels of communications in the Gulf and in the Middle East. Kuwait has its own way of politics. It's somehow unique and one of the best you could see in the Middle East. We have a quietness situation, political parties, elections, monarchy. It's a mixture of different things, and people have more freedom and economic opportunities and social aspects than other states. Oman is almost the same thing: a quietness, a cleanliness, channel of communications, mediation. Those countries did not want to be involved in any political disorder or conflicts in the Middle East or in the Gulf. They have not been taken side in the conflict. So mediation have been done by Kuwait and Oman frequently, but have not succeeded. No success. Still the situation, yes. Same stagnation, the same conflict, the same media campaign, yes. Even the media campaigns sometimes have more escalation. You know, the TVs, Al Jazeera represent Qatar, and Al Arabiya and Sky News and Al Ghad represent Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So we have the media have been playing a major role in this kind of conflict. Even with the pandemic, we have the pandemic for the past now has how long? 1 year. COVID-19. COVID-19, the pandemic has been there for almost 1 year and have affected every state and every continent, including the Gulf region. But like some thought was maybe this kind of pandemic would help ease the situation and lead those countries in conflict to have kind of talk. So we could have an end to the conflict, but that was not the situation. Again, even though with the development of COVID-19, the pandemic and the economic hardship, it's not only the pandemic which is affecting the health of every country and people and the society in the world. Not even this, we have even more than this, which is the economic hardship I did talk about this before when I said that influence of oil price going down has affecting almost every state in the world, but specifically the Gulf states have been affected in a negative way for the past few months because of the oil price have been a drop. These could have led, these points and these conditions and situations could have led to an end of the siege of Qatar, or at least easing the situation, having some talks, but nothing happened. Nothing happened. It seems there's some factors at the international level. We're going to look at them. We're going to ask the question is why this is happening and when it happened. Why we have differences between Qatar and other states in the Gulf. We said at the beginning, remember the first week and the second week when I was talking about the social structure, even though we have lots of commons between societies, but when you look at politics, it's not the same. When you look at political philosophy and political status of those countries are not the same, even though they look from outside, they look having almost the same political situation, but they're not really the same. No, we have lots of differences between them, as you're going to see in the next few minutes. So the beginning of the crisis was effective, the efficient, the timing, the beginning of the crisis was in June 2007, 3.5 years ago. What happened we have before that summit in Riyadh on the 20th of May, on 20th of May 2017, the Arab Islamic Summit, and everything seems to be fine. Everything was quite okay, politically, socially, economically, and Riyadh hosted such summit in the Islamic and Arab Islamic American Summit, where Donald Trump himself represented in this conference. So we have some 50 states, 50 countries were represented in this summit in Riyadh, including Gulf states and including Qatar. Only a few days after the summit ended, so from 21st to 24th, after 3 days after the end of Qatar, after the end of this summit in Riyadh, we had Qatar news agency was hijacked, was hacked. Some kind of news were fabricated, statements were fabricated, attributed to the Emir of the state of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Sheikh Tamim is the Emir of Qatar. He's the head of the state. It's a monarchy system, same like other states. When you talk about an official news agency, like any country, we have official news agency. In Qatar, we have Qatar News Agency, an official body, official media representing the state and the Emir. Now, we had a statement on the 24th of May. This statement attributed to the Emir, but in fact, that was not his statement. It was fabricated. Somebody hacked in the system, hacked in the website, and it changed and fabricated this statement. And it looks like something weird what's happening, that we have to check and see and examine the situation. And it seemed that was a false statement. False statements were used as a pretext to impose the siege. What was in the statement? In the statement, it seems to be like it's a false statement. It seems that the Emir was praising and supporting some military factions in the Middle East, which has been categorized by some countries in the West and even Saudi Arabia as terrorist organization. Anyway, there was no cause to impose any sanctions, no justification for the sanctions on Qatar, no real justification. We're going to look later on to see why exactly this happened, what was the situation and how. So as a result, we have the unprecedented media campaign was launched to target Qatar. Media campaign, you talk about some news agencies, TV stations such as Al Arabiya, Sky News, Al Ghad, those sponsored by states, by Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, launched media campaign against Qatar, That all before June 2017. And it was kind of a sudden, it was kind of a surprise for many people in many states in the world that on 5th of June 2017, 5th of June 2017, what we have is the culmination of the action by the besieging countries, the three Gulf states, KSA, UAE, and Bahrain, along with Egypt, cut diplomatic relation with Qatar and imposed sanctions on Qatar. So the measure they imposed, as you could see here, this is slide number 5, the closing, look at these, we have 14 points. Closing land, sea, airspace of Qatar, closing land, sea, and airspace. Preventing transit in their land, airspace, and territorial water. Preventing their citizens from traveling to Qatar. Preventing Qatari citizens from entering their countries and giving them 2 weeks only, 2 weeks period to leave. Seize all military cooperation with Turkey. Shut down Al Jazeera. Let's have a look in the slide 6 here at these points one by one. If you can see this slide, I don't know if the line is clear or not, if you can see it well. Number one, as you can see, number one, these are the 13 demands were made. 13 demands were made by the states who imposed the blockade. We call them blockading countries, blockading Qatar. 13 demands. Number one is that asking Qatar to downgrade diplomatic relation with Iran. 2, cease all military cooperation with Turkey. 3, severe or cut the support for what is called military or terrorist organizations such as the Muslim Brotherhood and Hezbollah and others. 4, stop all funding of individuals and groups which could be suspected by the Saudis and other blockading countries. Stop funding. Number 5 is hand over a list of some wanted people, wanted by the Saudis and other states and who blockading Qatar, to be handed to these blockading countries. Some of them were, or I think all of them were located and residing in Qatar. And surprisingly, asking for shut down Al Jazeera and its affiliate stations. And you know, Al Jazeera has the impact and the influence on people in the Middle East and even beyond the Middle East, because we have both Al Jazeera Arabic and Al Jazeera English. We have audience, millions and millions of audience of Al Jazeera all over the world. Not even this, stop media affiliated channels with Al Jazeera. Financial cooperation or financially to be cooperated with the blockading countries to help and support what is needed. So like asking Qatar to pay even for the blockading countries, which is somehow cynical, something cannot be accepted. Seek harmony with surrounding countries. Hand over information about individuals, organizations that Qatar has been cooperating and working with. Shut down in news agencies and in websites and journals and magazines. All demands must be fulfilled within 10 days, like by 15th of June, all these demands have to be fulfilled, meaning that giving them only 10 days notice, 10 days to fulfill these demands. An agreement with Qatar on these on the points of like scheduling how things could be done and reporting the progress of how things could be done after these demands to be fulfilled. And if you look at these, like, I mean, basically as individual political analyst or scientists, you could see these are really difficult, could be almost impossible to be able to apply these points. Qatar would not, because this kind of breach of the sovereignty of an independent state. How come an independent state can hand over information, hand over people, shut down their TV stations, stop cooperation with different countries? This can be almost impossible. This is illegal by international law. It is illegal because you breach the sovereignty. It's like kind of imposing sanctions, and this is kind of indirect occupation of Qatar. Of course, Qatar have refused completely to cooperate, but Qatar luckily have some good relation with Turkey and some countries in the Middle East and in the world. Now, you might ask me, like, what was the situation in the Middle East and worldwide? You will find that in the Middle East, like, some countries were somehow silent, did not cooperate, did not talk. Many countries have condemned this action because it was illegal. United States was, what about the United States? Trump administration. It seems that the Trump administration uh, looked at the situation as if they don't know anything, as if they have no idea. But the fact, believe me, that United States would know every single move in the Middle East. They monitor the situation very well in the Middle East and everywhere in the world. So the United States, like CIA and their agencies working in many countries and military bases they hack and they listen and they cooperate with countries and they have information more than the host countries sometimes. So you don't know about this, but they did not express anything in the first few days. They did not say much about the sanctions on a blockade. Well, you can say in this situation, everything was done was illegal, and it was a surprise for many people. Um, it was unprecedented. Like, even though we had some conflicts in the past between Qatar and those countries, we had this in 2014 and even beyond and before, but nothing happened in the GCC and between Arab states like exactly these kind of measures, unprecedented between Arab Gulf states. Unprecedented measures, harsh. The question is, like, was there any intention by the blockading countries to occupy or to military attack Qatar? We don't really have enough information to support this, but there's some information, some leaks suggesting that there was in the plan some military action to be taken against Qatar by the blockading countries. There was some leaks and some information, but I cannot support this. Meaning, I'm not really 100% sure if this was the situation. We have at least enough basis information to support this idea that if Qatar does not cooperate on time, then maybe an action could be taken. An action could be taken by the blockading countries, military action against Qatar, and have a coup d'etat. This did not happen. Why did it not happen? Why they could not impose this kind of military action? Why they could not take action? What is the benefit for the blockading countries to have only sanctions without having military actions? No, Al Jazeera have been attacking much those countries later on. The media in Qatar and the allies of Qatar have been somehow attacking those blockading countries in terms of, everything has done was illegal. So Turkey has done a lot. Turkey have its own military base already there. And with the military base, which has been signed the kind of cooperation agreement between Turkey and Qatar, this military cooperation between the two states entitle Turkey to be able to move its own forces, some of the forces to be located in Qatar. And I don't think that the blockading countries, including Egypt or Saudi Arabia, able to attack Qatar if the Turkish troops are located in Qatar, because this could be an attack on the Qatari military bases and forces, and this could lead to a major war. So they could not do it. They could not confront Qatar. In terms of economy, Qatar was able to bypass all the sanctions, having goods, commodities coming from many countries, from Turkey, from Oman, even like Oman becomes a third party in this equation, where most of the commodities coming to Qatar used to be coming to Oman, and from Oman to be directed by Oman Air or Omani ships going to Qatar. So Oman played a major role in this, helping Qatar indirectly, and this is why Saudis have unofficially accused Oman of being supporting Qatar in this crisis. It was a shock, yes. It was a shock, and they wanted Qatar to surrender within a short time. Qatar could not and cannot. Luckily, Qatar has the ability to survive and to stand. It's one of the richest countries in the world with a small number of population. The size of Qatar is a small country. Then have allies. You know the small country politics, small country. There's a theory about this small country diplomacy and politics, where small countries in size and population can proceed and bypass these kind of what we call this shortage and inability to be able to stand in its own by having its ability to link itself with other major countries, allies, cooperation, alliance, and this is what happened. In addition to the ability to buy and manufacture and invest in its own country. And investment was one of the elements where Qatar was able to invest, was able to even to do what? To manufacture many of the things. By the way, many of the goods were coming to Qatar from Saudi Arabia have lost their own market. So the market supposed to be, Qatar was a market for Saudis for many things, especially the food products. But then Saudis have lost this market. So they expected that Qatar could surrender, but that was the opposite. Qatar, for the past 3 years, was able to build a better economy than before. Even though Qatar depends much on gas and oil, especially in gas, it's the best, it could be number one in terms of the reserve in the world in terms of gas export. But Qatar was able to build its own factories, having its own farms, a trade exchange with many countries in the world. I would like to add to this before I go to the lessons here. Qatar has been able to build its own defensive policy. What I mean by defensive policy, Qatar for the past 3 years was able to build its own defense capability, of course, in cooperation with countries such as the United States and Turkey. Turkey is being a major support of Qatar as an ally, as working together in cooperation. We have seen many economic projects and companies were established in Qatar by Turkey. We have lots of common initiatives. In addition to the military training, schools has been established in Qatar to train its forces and to invest much in the military forces as well. Let's go back to the crisis, even though it looks clear it was in 2017, but what's beyond this? What was before 2017? Go back to 2014. 2014, we have some lessons, not the first crisis. In 2014, we have a crisis where we have three countries. We have that's Saudi Arabia, same country, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and United Arab Emirates withdraw their own ambassadors from Doha. But then they send them back. We're going to look at this. What happened? What you see? What is the igniting point? Why this is going on? Why this crisis is happening? One major answer to all of this is the politics of Qatar. Qatari foreign policy is not the same like other countries in the Middle East. I talk about exactly in the Gulf. Qatar foreign policy depends much on its own media, and its own media based on Al Jazeera, which was one of the major factors in Arab Spring. You know, 2011, from 2011 onward, we have major change in political situation in the Middle East, began in Tunisia, which is called political transformation or Arab Spring. That's that kind of a change. We have seen people went out in the streets in Tunisia and they changed the political regime in Egypt, in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria, and it goes to the Gulf, in some of the Gulf states, in Bahrain, slightly in Oman, and so on and so forth. In many countries, we have seen lots of changes, and Al Jazeera was trying to cover all these situation in the Middle East. Now, Egypt In Egypt, the situation was unique because Egypt is the biggest country in the Middle East. I mean, in the Arab world, almost 100 million inhabitants, people of Egypt. Egypt was somehow has its own influence in many countries, many other countries. Egypt and Saudi Arabia, they work in similar situation in terms of politics, and they have their own influence in other states and other political regimes in the Middle East. So what happened? We have the change of January 2011 in Egypt. Hosni Mubarak, see, Hosni Mubarak has lost the power. Then we have the election in 2012 where Muhammad Morsi was elected. And you know, Muhammad Morsi is a Muslim Brotherhood, and he was elected as the head of the state in Egypt for the first time. For decades in Egypt, we have a president of Egypt from the civil society, civilian. He's not from the military because, you know, the military in Egypt, he is the one um, controlling everything in Egypt. Everything has been controlled in Egypt for many decades by the military. Any president would come from the military. The only time, 2012, Muhammad Morsi. You know, Muhammad Morsi, we have after that in July 3rd, July 2013, things were changed where the Abdel Fattah al-Sisi led the coup d'etat. The coup d'etat in Egypt, it was a coup d'etat, a real military coup d'etat, and no one can have any doubt on this because even if you look back at that time where the CNN, not even the CNN, almost every state in the world have believed that what happened in Egypt was not a second revolution, was the opposition revolution, which was a military coup d'etat led by the military in Egypt against the election and the civil society, and everything went upside down, upside down. So with the coming back of the new system led by military in Egypt, things were to change. Now Al Jazeera was all the time, Al Jazeera was all the time working with the people of the Middle East to cover the whole picture of the revolutions. What happens when Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt becoming the president of Egypt, things were somehow changed. Now the new system in Egypt would stop any kind of a spread for the Arab Spring in the Middle East. And you see, look at Yemen, things went upside down. Nothing has no success. Syria becomes a disaster. Libya, it's a second disaster, third disaster. All countries are becoming having like call them the second wave, but this second wave becomes call them the opposition of the revolutions from the deep state, from the deep states having fighting back and coming back, and Egypt. Now, what happened? Saudi Arabia was able to stand and want to support its own coalition in the Middle East with the new regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Egypt. Now, that's led somehow to Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and their own affiliates, and Egypt wanted to impose sanctions on Qatar in 2014. What they did, they withdrew their own ambassadors. So the ambassadors of these countries were withdrawn from Qatar in 2014, and that led to somehow kind of diplomatic crisis with Qatar. That was physical and feasible, and you could see this, but it was not like 2017. It was not. This crisis ended, yes. By the end of 2014, see the Doha summit, we see before that we have Riyadh summit. In 2014, we have that kind of difficulties and different situations. But in 2014, in November, we have Riyadh agreement between the blockading countries and Qatar. We have the aim was the Riyadh agreement on November 16th on 2014, where we would like to end the situation. Amid the situation, what was in the United States, we had Barack Obama. Obama was the president of the United States, and he was not a fan of Egypt. No, he was not a fan of Saudi Arabia. And Barack Obama, you know, the deal was done with Iran in 2015, nuclear deal. The approach was not the same like Donald Trump. You know, this is the element. This is one of the most important elements. When you look at the siege, you look at the element outside elements and the middle, the regional. That's what kind of changed the whole equation. Egypt and its politics and Saudi Arabia and its politics to the United States and its own way to look at the Middle East. Yes, The United States, if they want to end this kind of crisis in the Gulf, they can do it simply and easy. All right, they can do it very simple and easy. But anyway, the Saudi Arabia and other blockading countries in 2014 wanted Qatar to be on their side, so they kind of returned to the diplomatic ties with Doha. Um, that was in November 2014. In December 2014, we have Doha summit. You know, the diplomatic missions in Doha and diplomatic foreign policy of Qatar, it's one of the best because they depends much on their own skills and wisdom and the good diplomacy to end the crisis. And that was the situation where they invited everybody in December 2014 to come to Doha and have the summit of Doha with even the king Abdul Aziz, sorry, the, the the Saudi crown prince at that time was Prince Salman, who's the king of today. It was that King Salman was at that time in 2017. He was the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He went and met with the leaders of the Gulf countries on behalf of King Abdul Aziz. Now, this can prove that Qatar was able to absorb and to contain the crisis and to be able to deal with the Saudis and blockading countries in a diplomatic way. Now, why they could succeed in 2014, but they could not succeed in 2017 onward? This is the reason. If you look at Obama administration, Obama administration left office in 2016. 2016, we have a new president of the United States, which is Donald Trump. 2015, Obama struck the deal with Iran. 2014, Obama was in power. Obama, as I mentioned before a few minutes, he was not really a good fan of the Saudis and for Egyptians, even though the United States have a strong allies with Saudis and somehow good ties with Egypt for political reasons, of course, but they were not supporting them in many aspects in terms of the way they deal with their own people and democracy and non-democracy and political situations and human rights. The United States, led by Obama at that time, was not in support of the Saudis and Egyptians. This is one of the reasons. The second is that the Saudis wanted the support of Qatar to lead the war in Yemen. And you know, in Yemen, the war in Yemen, where the coalition led by the Saudi Arabia wanted the support from every country in the Gulf. Of course, Oman was not there. Oman refused completely. Qatar was somehow supporting. It was part of the coalition initially, but then later on, in 2015, Qatar suspended its own membership of the coalition in the war in Yemen. Right now, this coalition somehow went from that time until now, 2020. You could see the war in Yemen is still ongoing, and this is one of the what do you call it, of the setback, one of the setbacks for the Saudis. You know, they have been fighting in Yemen for a few years. How much they done? Not much. Did they succeed? Not really. The conflict is ongoing. Devastation in Yemen. The Saudis have paying the price. Billions and billions of US dollars have been paid in this war. And even the stability of the Saudi Arabia have been lost. Of course, Yemen have been destroyed. As you could see, that is refugees and destruction. The situation is really hard for the Yemeni people. And this has not been accepted by many countries in the Middle East. But the Saudis now have been in fighting this, accusing Iran of being part of the conflict, supporting the Houthis. It's really complicated. We're going to have a whole lecture talking about the Yemeni situation, but it was one of the biggest mistakes to be done by the Saudis is to go in a war in Yemen. One of the biggest mistakes. From the beginning, if you want to solve the situation, if you want to be a good ally with the Yemenis, you could talk to them. And you know, Yemen and Yemenis were one of the best allies with the Saudi Arabian, and there was a good tie with them. Many Yemenis work and live in Saudi Arabia for many years. And Yemen is one of the excellent locations in the Gulf. But I mean, how can you manage, how can you run the situation is important. The Saudis could not run the situation in the best way in Yemen. I know this now seems to be really bad things for them and they regret, but they cannot easily find a solution. There was an attempt by the Saudis just a few months ago that they called for peace and into that situation and escalation. Uh, but it's not easy to pull out without any agreement. This is not the situation now. But anyway, what I'm talking about now, Qataris have left this coalition. They don't believe in the war in Yemen. Now the Saudis and Emiratis almost left alone fighting the fight. Of course, they have some mercenaries. You know what I mean by mercenaries? Fighting, getting the money to fight, people from different countries on behalf of the Saudis and United Arab Emirates in Yemen. The same thing goes from the Houthi side. It's complicated. I'm not going to go into details because this would be left to another time. That's no. What most important here in this situation is the United States factor in the crisis. The United States factor in this crisis, where when we have in 2016 Donald Trump was elected as a president of the United States, things were changed almost completely. And you could see now the elections in the United States, what has been happening, and how much expectation that the United States new politics would have an influence on the Middle East and on especially on the Gulf region. Lots of changes would happen. You could see Donald Trump, after coming to power, he pulled out from the nuclear deal with Iran, suspending its membership from many international treaties and organizations, supporting the Saudis and United Arab Emirates, and we have the normalization ties between Israel and some Gulf states. Lots of changes happen. This could not be the same situation when Joe Biden would come to power. So the major steps were taken in the Middle East was in 2016, 2017. 2017, because Donald Trump, as I mentioned before, that was in only in May 2017, he was attending the conference, Arab Islamic American Conference, was led by 50 countries, led by United States in Saudi Arabia. After a few days, Qatar was under the sanctions. After a few days, the blockading countries imposed sanctions on Qatar. What does it mean? Does it mean the United States have asked the Saudis to do it? No. But it means that those blockading countries want to have a revenge. They want to occupy Qatar. They want to change the political system there because they're not unhappy with the whole political regime and political system in Qatar and wanted to change it. Now, they have the opportunity as Donald Trump was somehow in support. I cannot see given a statement even like this because we cannot see any indication in this regard, but you could feel it. You could sense it that the United States, what happens and the changes happen because Donald Trump comes to power, indicating that he has indirect support of the move by the Saudis and blockading country. And this is why today we hear about nowadays, in the past few weeks, we hear that some efforts have been taken to end the siege and to end this conflict. Even though the Saudis decided to bypass Trump, Trump was insulting everybody, offending everybody. He does not care. Like the way he's acting, even with his colleagues, with people working with him, with his opponents in the United States and offshore, Donald Trump is not respecting anybody. He's not respecting even the king of Saudi Arabia. Even with this kind of irrespect and offense, the Saudis decided to go along with the policy of the United States because they needed this badly to confront Iran, because Iran is a powerful state in the region. Turkey as well. Turkey is a powerful, it could be the strongest country in the Middle East. Turkey could be the strongest country in the Middle East and beyond the Middle East in this region. This is why Saudis wanted to have its own allies. Saudis want to have a new allies in the Middle East led by Saudi and Egypt, and Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and whoever country. And lately, with Israel, with the normalization ties with Israel and United States, where Donald Trump is supporting these moves. Now, as you can see in the last slide we have today, things could be changing, How things can be changed, it depends on how Joe Biden can deal with the situation. You know, Joe Biden, um, you could tell me that Joe Biden is the same like Donald Trump. They don't care about people in the Middle East. No, this is not the same situation. I tell you the difference between them. When you look at the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, they are not the same. But this is not our topic. When you look at the Gulf situation, they are not the same. Most likely, Joe Biden will go back to the deal with Iran, nuclear deal. You know, the atomic situation with Iran. And you know the assassination a few days ago of Mohsen Zadi? Hold on a second. Come in. Come in. Alaikum salam. I'm busy now. Thank you. Sorry. So the assassination of the Mohsen Zadi in Iran, who is a very high rank, that could be one of the things before Trump leaving office, that he wanted to mix up the situation in the Gulf, that military action could be taken, as he threatened it. Any well, not an attempt. He said like any life cost of American soldiers in the Gulf by Iran, that would lead to a military action, ferocious military action by United States against Iran. Mostly Iran is not going to respond because you know that they cannot defeat the United States. They cannot even stand on opposing the United States and Israel. It's going to be difficult for them. But anyway, what's been happening for the past few days, we have lots of moves, many moves. You could see the assassination of this guy, attacks on Iranian base in Syria. Last night we heard that there was an assassination of one of the Revolutionary Guard, one of the leaders of Revolutionary Guard in Iran, in Syria, I think. There was few attempts and talks. Saudi foreign minister, only few days, was talking that about the end of the siege on Qatar. This is something new. This is something new that he's talking now, because Joe Biden is coming to power, and Joe Biden most likely will be focusing much on the Middle East, on the Yemeni conflict, an end to the Yemeni conflict, and could be an end to the siege on Qatar, and coming back to the nuclear deal with Iran. So the Saudis might be now trying to change their own move and their own thinking about the situation, and doing what, and trying to open a new page of dealing with the new administration in the United States, and trying to pave the way for good and strong relationship with the new administration, because they cannot stand against and the changes will be coming in the Middle East. Again, like Joe Biden is not happy with the violations of human rights, especially in Egypt, and he mentioned this a few times. He's not happy with violations of human rights by the Saudi regimes on the dissidents, especially with Jamal Khashoggi assassination. You know the situation on this case. So the Saudis want now to pave the way for the new administration to have a good, strong ties, especially could be now dealing with Qatari crisis, that we could see an end to the Gulf crisis. This could be the situation in the next few weeks, maybe. I cannot say this is definitely going to happen, but this could be the situation. All right, I'm finished now. We can have discussion if you would like to ask questions.
Thank you, Professor, for your interesting presentation. Dear participants, if you have a question, please use the raise hands button at the bottom of the screen and ask
still questions. Like Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me, Professor?
Yes. Hold on a second. Just the sound is not clear.
Okay.
Um, I cannot see the list. Oh, okay. Yes, I can. I can now.
No, okay.
Can I ask the question?
Yes, we have few students who wants to ask question.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Am I audible? Clear?
Okay, go on.
Sir. Okay. First of all, sir, thank you for this your wonderful session about today's theme. So my question is, if you see current developments happening, like killing of, assassination of Iranian scientists and had a its main nuclear scientist, and then we can see the strikes, Israeli air strikes in pro-Iranian forces in Syria. So, do you think that before, like Joe Biden's presidency after 10 January, which he will be taking the control of White House, is the Israel and is planning to have a direct confrontation with Iran, or is Trump administration is behind this whole scene or the scenario coming up?
Thank you, Sayed. Thank you. It's not easy to predict what's going to happen, and what we have seen, we have seen for the past few days these kind of indications that the United States, led by now still led by Donald Trump, can take action with Israel as both allies. They work together, and most likely they want to impose sanctions on Iran, and they would like to make it difficult for Joe Biden to take any action to go back to the nuclear deal. How are they going to make this? I think Donald Trump has not even conceded. He has not accepted the result of the election. So if once he leave office, he wants to leave office with having many obstacles and impediments on the face of Joe Biden. One of this could be the major obstacles could be in the Middle East if a military action can be taken against Iran. A military action is not going to be easy because any military confrontation with Iran can lead to destructions in the Middle East. Especially United States have their own military bases in the Gulf. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, in Bahrain, and every country in the Gulf, they have military bases. So Iran can attack hard those military bases, and they could attack Bahrain, they can attack Saudi Arabia, so they can attack Israel and Tel Aviv especially. But then United States, they have, the capability. No one knows exactly how much the United States have, but be sure that they have the capability to strike hard and destroy the Iranian infrastructure and almost everything in Iran, especially because they have many Iranian people are not happy with the Iranian political situation who can support any kind of a move. But the question is, can Iran as a political regime give the chance to United States to take an action? No. The assassination of this, it's Mohsen Zadi is one of the highest ranks in the country. Not even look at Qasem Soleimani, who was the leader or military leader in Iran, who was assassinated by the United States in January this year. But how much action was taken? Because Iranians know exactly any military action to be taken, especially now. This can lead to a major war, and they cannot afford, nobody can afford, especially the Iranian. They cannot afford such a military confrontation. So I assume that's one is Iran cannot and should not now or would not take any military action against the United States or Israel. And I assume at the same time, we might witness in the next few days more military actions to be taken by Israel and the United States against Iranians' interests. Okay, move to anyone else who would like to ask.
Sir, I had just one doubt
Can you speak up?
regarding your. Hello.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. Hi, sir. from India. Sir, I had one doubt. Sir, you said during 2014 Riyadh summit, Obama administration's not favoring Saudi Arabia and Egypt somehow helped in the negotiations between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So I didn't understand the connection between the two.
No, see, the sanctions we have today in 2017 began in 2017. The sanctions on Qatar began in 2017 and it's still going on. But this was not the first time we have conflict and cutting diplomatic ties. That was in 2014, we had Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain cut their diplomatic ties with Qatar. You see, that was the first time officially they cut their diplomatic tie with Qatar, but then that had an end. This diplomatic crisis in 2014 ended by the end of 2014, so that was not going for a long time. Now, but then if you talk about today's crisis, it's still going on for the past 3.5 years. See the difference? Did I answer your question?
Sir, my question is how the Obama administration is not favoring uh, Saudi Arabia. How has it helped in 2014 to negotiate with the between Qatar and Saudi Arabia? I mean, one of the reasons yeah.
You see that now with Obama administration and Joe Biden was at that time was deputy, was the vice president. With the Obama administration, they could not allow much of the human rights violations in the Middle East. You know, when you talk about the human rights violations, one of the things happened with Khashoggi, the assassination of Khashoggi in Turkey by the Saudis. And this is one of the things now, and even going after the dissidents in many countries in the world. Same thing with Egypt and the torturing of the oppositions in the prisons in Egypt, and this is still ongoing. With Obama administration, that was not really much as happening after the coming of Trump administration. So Trump administration was kind of closing their eyes on any kind of, or most of the activities done by those countries. With the Obama administration, Obama could somehow look at the situation because United States have a good allies with a good relationship with Qatar, and Qatar would be able to depend much on the United States. Is it still the same situation nowadays? Yes, it's still the same situation that Qatar is one of the best friends of the United States on the table. But behind the scene, you cannot see this is really the situation because Qatar is still functioning, is still working with some of the oppositions. You know what opposition? Egyptian opposition who live in Qatar, Saudi opposition who have been hosted by Al Jazeera. Same thing goes for other countries. So that Qataris were able to open a window of opportunity for the oppositions. What this could be welcomed by the United States as a freedom of expression, and this by Obama. When with the Trump, he could not really, we could take. He did not take any actions or any action against the Saudis, even trying to put any pressure with the Saudis to have kind of a human rights activities and freedom of expressions like could be in the administration led by Obama. It's not a major thing, but you could see that now. You could see if you look at the TV stations by Al Arabiya and Sky News, who led by Saudis and the Arab Emirates, even in the elections in the United States, they support Trump and they not favor Joe Biden. You know why? Why? Because you know the consequences. It's not going to be harsh, but at least Joe Biden can take an action asking them lift the sanction. This is illegal. It's illegal. That's what I'm saying. Because with the Trump, it doesn't care about this. With Joe Biden, he believes in international law. Next question, please.
Hello, sir. Do you hear me?
Yes, Abdurrahman.
Yeah. I'm Abdurrahman Moulani from Somalia. Yeah.
Hello, Abdurrahman, go on.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting us. Yes, the Gulf crisis is normally in between the Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. I think that's right. The crisis is only concerned about political power, how they dominate the Middle East, and how each of them influence and played its own role. For instance, the blockade of Qatar is only about Saudi Arabia and its ally UAE for how they try to catch the power in the Middle East and also the GCC members. For example, the GCC crisis is all concerned about in the Horn of Africa, like the Djibouti and Somalia. For example, the Djibouti, the Qatar UN soldiers are withdrawing for their soldier after the Djibouti announced it to ally with Saudi Arabia. And after that, Eritrea was immediately captured the, the land that the Qatar withdrew. And for example, the Somalia is making a good relation with the Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and other countries. But Somalia foreign minister at that time, Ahmed Isa Awad, announced that the crisis is in between the brothers and and he already announced it is neutral for it's mediating the crisis. But I have a two question. One of them, so can we say all the crises happening in a GCC countries are political power agenda? And the second question is, how will the crisis of GCC countries be solved even though Iran will ally some GCC countries, including Qatar? Yes, thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Abdurrahman, for the questions and for the comments. It is about political power. You know, the Saudis want to impose their own policy on every single state in the GCC. By the way, this is the situation. Saudi Arabia is the biggest country in terms of the large in size and population. We have as well the ambition of the young leader Mohammed bin Salman, who thinks and believes that he could be the future. He could be the future king, and not only of the Saudi Arabia, for the whole Gulf region. And he's got his own ambition. The same thing from Mohammed bin Zayed in United Arab Emirates. He is doing almost the same thing, but this is beyond their own capabilities, and this is beyond the logic and legal aspects. So it becomes about power. They want to impose their own countries and their own self on other states, and this is not accepted. This is unaccepted. When a Bahrain, for example, have accepted, because the Bahraini leadership want to have the support of the Saudi Arabia. So we have something called containment policy by the Saudis, containing every single small country if possible in in the Gulf and even in the wider Middle East countries. Many countries is in the pocket, on the pocket of the Saudis. You see what I mean? It's about the power. Yes. The second point you ask about the how can we solve? How can we solve? Solving, it's about, like, you know, again, it's the interest and the power and the how can we bargain, compromise, take and give and take. It's you cannot take what you want exactly, what you cannot give everything. Eventually, we're going to have a middle ground, but this could not be the situation. We might see the blockading countries reversing all the actions they have taken against Qatar, because this could be the situation. You know what? Qatar has been for the past 3 years doing very well. Economy better than other states. Politics, military, doing better than many countries in the Middle East. So what is the point of the sanctions? There's no point of the sanctions. The sanction is not really doing much. So eventually, we're going to have to come together and in this kind of crisis. Thank you, Abdurrahman. There's a question asked by Victoria Silva. Victoria, she's asking about, I have a question for later. Okay, what is the impact on the death of both leaders of Kuwait and Oman with regard to the mediation? I don't think we have much impact because Kuwait is still Kuwait, and the same politics there, and same thing with Oman. Not much has been changed. Believe me, I could see the situation well. Not much has been changed. Kuwait and Oman have their own independent policy. They can have the influence, the communication with every single country in the world. They have institutions, and those institutions have been functioning, especially Minister of Foreign Affairs. So not much changes.
Hello, Professor.
Hello.
May I ask a question?
Okay, Safit.
Yes, I'm Safit. I'm from Turkey. Yes, I have a couple of questions, and I would like to ask my questions one by one. And when did Turkey establish a military base in Qatar? By the way, was this military cooperation reciprocal? I mean, did Qatar also found a military base in Turkey? I have never heard about it. That's why I'm asking. The second question, do you think this situation, Turkey's military acts, as a threat to the Middle Eastern region?
Sorry, just the last point, the military base of Turkey and Qatar.
Yes, military. Yes, this military act. I mean, the founding military bases in Qatar. And do you think this situation as a threat to the Middle Eastern region?
I think when you work in politics, you will find yourself that in need to establish links and cooperation between you and other countries. When I'm teaching international relations, we focus much on two things: conflict and cooperation. Which is most in the world? We have cooperation more than conflicts. We have cooperations between states more than conflicts. We cooperation in economy, in culture, in education, in military, in many aspects, in education, in health. We cooperate in many aspects of our life. We do have conflicts, but again, cooperation can be in military. So Turkey can teach Qataris how to defend themselves, how to act, how to use the new technology of what do you call that, machines. This is what the situation exactly. Now, if you look at, I have one of the papers have been written by somebody who's teaching in one of the military schools in Qatar, and it's talking about the developments in Qatar for the past 3 years. Much development, more than you can imagine how much that Qatar has been developed for the past few years in terms of military capabilities. I'm not talking about the machines. I'm talking and weaponry. No, I'm talking about the personnel. The Qatari personnel have been trained much by many countries: Germany, Turkey, Italy. Many countries have been working now in Qatar and training their own forces. But why Turkey? Turkey has its own ambition to work with every country in the world to lead in terms of humanity and security and justice, and believing that their own friend and allies in Qatar, they need the help. And if they need the help, because we have, by the way, the tie between Turkey and Qatar was long before the sanctions. Meaning, what I mean is, the military base. You see, if you look at the 13 points I mentioned at the beginning, that Saudis wanted Qatar to end the military cooperation with Turkey, because there was a military base in Turkey already. There exists in Qatar. So they wanted to close this military base. But what happened that once you have this military base, instantly, after a few days, Turkey was able to send its troop based on the need and the request of its ally, which is Qatar. So I don't think there was any problem. If you look at in the Gulf, how many military bases of the United States? How many military bases for the United Kingdom? Many of them in the Middle East, and especially in the Gulf. So it depends like who and what you want exactly. And this is not adding to the conflict. It depends like what you need to apply. Cooperation. We have a military institute, Minister of Defense in Qatar. They have cooperation with most countries in the world in many aspects. One of them is Turkey.
And apart from this, in which Middle Eastern countries did Turkey establish a military base? Apart from Qatar and, yes, apart from Qatar. I don't know. That's why I'm asking to learn.
That's a difficult question, Safed. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not really sure, but I could ask. But even there's one of the situation is they could see. I mean, Turkey has been involved in many activities, military activities based on the cooperation and needs. It doesn't have to be military based. I mean, some of the involvement has been in Syria, in Libya, but this is not a military base. It's about the interest and the cooperation with the country, and that it depends on, like in Syria, for example, it's one of the unique situations because of the boundaries. We want to create a buffer zone between us and Turkey and Syria, a buffer zone to protect the boundaries. In Libya, we have an alliance and cooperation and backed with Libyan government. So based on, it could be the situation based on many aspects, but I don't know if the other military base or not. I'm not really sure. In the Gulf, I think no. In the Gulf, I'm not really sure. I don't think, but there could be kind of cooperation, yes. Cooperate, but not military base.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Can we take another 1 or 2 questions and end this, please? Maximum 2 questions. Do you want me to read from the list? Somebody is asking, is there a truth of Qatar supporting the supposed terrorist groups, or is it?
I am Mukarrab Kabir from Pakistan. My question is that what is the nature of relations between Turkey and Qatar?
That's a good question, but
strategic, natural, or what kind of partnership they have?
You know, there's a theory called small country politics. Did you hear about it? Small country politics.
Yes, sir.
Small countries like Qatar is small in size, and it's small in capability in terms of military aspects. So small countries, what they do usually, they have backed an alliance with countries in regional level and at the international level. Like Qatar is able to work in 2 aspects. One is military cooperation with the United States, with the UK, and with Turkey. Okay, so Turkey have a strong ties with Qatar. But why Turkey? We hear about this much more than any other states. Turkey have what is about politics, for example, the politics of Qatar, foreign policy of Qatar, and foreign policy of Turkey. We have lots of similarities. I'm not going to go into details because this is a bit really sensitive issue. I don't want to be making any mistake in here. But Turkey and Qatar having similarities in their own foreign policy towards, let's say, the Muslim Brotherhood. That's one of the things, which is somehow like this is why they work a lot in many aspects. And this is one thing. They have common ground in terms of investment. We have many money, Turkish investment. We've seen in the past few days, we have seen a new pact between Qatar and Turkey on investment. Turkey would invest much in Qatar. I think one of the biggest malls in Istanbul, maybe my friends in Istanbul can support me now. I think one of the biggest malls in Istanbul would be a Qatari mall. I think would cost millions and millions of dollars, would be based in Istanbul. I think so. So kind of investment and foreign investment and economy, politics and foreign policy and military base and military training. And I mentioned again, like Qatar have military cooperation with many countries, including Germany, Italy, many countries in the West, and Turkey. Turkey is the 2nd largest country in the NATO. It's a strong country in terms of military capabilities. They manufacture different types of weaponry. So that can help to be able to invest and work with other allies in the Middle East. Anything else? Can we take a last question or two questions? Shabir, you want to ask? Shabir, Shabir is asking a question here. We cannot hear you, but I can read your question. I can read it. So he says, I think Qatar is on the right path regarding foreign policy with non-Muslim powers, while remaining Gulf states are losing their way. Please, I cannot get exactly present what do you mean exactly by this? As a Gulf country is losing their way, they're not really losing the way. I don't think they're losing the way. We have this crisis in the Gulf, and Qatar will overcome this. I think most likely they're gonna come back and they're gonna end this conflict. Most likely Qatar will be working with other states in the Middle East and in the Gulf to go back to the same normal situation. We're gonna witness an end to the conflict sooner or later, even though we have some differences. But you know what is common between Gulf states more than you can imagine in social and economy. But what's the difference between them is politics, and this politics is changeable. Nothing fixed in politics, believe me, Shabir. In political life, if you're going to be working in politics, you would believe that the only things could be fixed and stable is that politics is changing. Foreign policy is not something really fixed. We do have principles, yes. We believe in a few things, we're going to keep them, but lots of things can be changed, depends on the interest of the country itself. So the interest of Gulf state is their own unity, social aspects and economy and many things. So these kind of differences would have an end one day. Shafia or Shafi Mazlan says Qatar is sympathizing towards Muslim Brotherhood could be considered as a factor that caused Saudi-Qatari tension. Yes, definitely. That is the main point. You know, the main opposition in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood. The main opposition for Saudis is the Muslim Brotherhood. And you see the election in Tunisia. The Muslim Brotherhood won the election in Egypt was the same thing. That was not helping the Egyptians and now the regime in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. But even though Qatar does not have opposition, but Qatar is hosting some of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, some of the leaders living in Doha. That is not even this. It's not about living there. It's fine. Some of the Muslim Brotherhood leaders live in London. They live in London and many European countries. They apply for asylum, become refugees, and well known there. Even Rashid al-Ghannouchi, he was the leader in Tunisia. He was living in London for many years. This is not the main point. The main point is Al Jazeera, because Al Jazeera have a window of opportunity for Muslim Brotherhood to express their own thought. The Al Jazeera was a main channel of communication between the people in the Arab states and the new revolution and what happens of the political transformation, where Al Jazeera could be one of the main factors for people to imitate, because the picture on TV instantly that lead people to go out, and that was giving the chance to the Muslim Brotherhood leaders to come and talk, and that was not welcomed by Egypt. I mean, took Egypt as a political regime led by Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the same thing goes for the Saudi Arabia. All right, done. Can we have a last question if you want? A last question? No? Now let me just pick up one of the questions here from the books. Okay, I think I've read the questions here. Okay, if you have no question, then we can have an end to this. No question? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Have a good week.
Thank you,
And
Professor.
we'll talk next week, inshallah.
Mhm.